This is the Love Language Podcast with Abdul Ghaffar. Love Language. Conversations about love that ask more of you. Hello everyone, it's good to have you join me again on the program Love Language. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you for your messages, for your text messages, for your emails, and for your comments, especially on our last episode. We spoke quite intensely about identifying yourself, knowing yourself, finding yourself. We tried to realize the fact that before love begins, we need to understand ourselves, we need to identify ourselves, and ultimately, we need to stop putting the blames on ourselves. Because things go wrong doesn't mean you're wrong, and don't always feel like when things don't work out, it's all your fault. Don't blame yourself. Let out that emotion in you, because when you keep those emotions, they eventually pile up and they fill up that at the end of the day when you burst, it's very disastrous. So let those sides or let those things out of you as you progress. Welcome to the show once again. My name is Abdul Ghaffar. Again, a huge thank you to everyone for being a part of this show. Today, let's take a look at something very personal indeed to everyone. Personal to you, especially listening to me at this point in time. It's about the fact that we keep falling in love with the same person in different bodies, and that's why I want to talk to you today about something very important, which I titled Why We Fall for the Same Person in Different Bodies. There's a particular kind of attraction that does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself as obsession. It does not feel irrational at first. It feels quite familiar. You meet someone and something inside you softens immediately. You know, that goosebumps, that feeling of affection. Your guard lowers without negotiation. You feel strangely understood even before you are fully known. Conversations flow with ease. Silence feels safe. There is an unspoken sense of recognition that is difficult to explain but impossible to ignore. And later, sometimes much later, you realize an unsettling truth. You have met them before. Yes, that's it. This same person. You have met him before and again and again and again. Not the same body anyway. Not this same name. But emotionally, you have met them before. So let me ask you something quite difficult. Have you ever looked back at your romantic history and felt a quiet sense of deja vu? Not the dramatic kind, but the subtle, sinking awareness that although the people changed, the emotional story did not change. Different faces, different timelines, different circumstances, different promises, yet ending the same emotional way, the same waiting for clarity, the same over-explaining your needs, the same hope that this one will finally respond differently, love differently, stay differently, and even act differently. Why does that happen? Why do intelligent, reflective, self-aware people repeatedly find themselves drawn to partners who feel instantly familiar, yet slowly leave them emotionally depleted? The answer is both clear and uncomfortable. We do not fall in love with people as blank slates. We fall in love with emotional patterns learned early, patterns reinforced quietly, patterns stored not just in memory, but in nervous systems. And unless we become conscious of those patterns, they choose for us long before we believe we are choosing freely. So, stay with me. This episode is not blaming your past or pathologizing desire or those emotional feelings or your softness. It's about understanding attraction before it hardens into attachment. Did you get that? It's about understanding attraction before it hardens into attachment, and recognizing familiarity before it disguises itself as fate. So, you need to understand this very, very carefully. It starts with attraction and it grows and hardens into becoming attachment. So, at the end of the day, you feel really stuck and attached to that person. Of course, it starts with an attraction. Also, you need to understand before, first of all, that it starts also with from some form of familiarity. I have seen this before, I've experienced this before, I've had this before, and you break it down at the end of the day and turn it to, oh, it's my faith. Nah, it's love language, and my name is Abdul Ghaffar. Thank you so much for joining me on the love language program today. And we are taking a very interesting look at something interesting, and I call it why we fall in love for the same person in different bodies. Let me tell you a story. I'll call her Zainab. By her mid-30s, Zainab had been in 3 relationships. On the surface, these relationships appeared entirely different. The men did not resemble one another. They worked in different fields, held different values, moved in different social circles, and even expressed affections in different ways. They were differently romantically driven. To anyone observing from outside, there was no obvious pattern. But emotionally, the relationships were identical. Each one began with intensity, long conversations that stretched late into the night, emotional openness that felt rare and intoxicating, a sense of instant connection that gave Zainab the impression that something meaningful had finally arrived. She often described this phase as finally being seen, as though someone had recognized parts of her that had previously gone unnoticed. Yet, over time, a familiar shift occurred. Affection became inconsistent, availability became conditional, emotional presence slowly faded. Zainab responded the only way she knew how, by trying harder and harder all the time. She became more patient, more understanding, more accommodating. She waited longer for replies, softened her language, became more gentle, and learned to present her needs carefully and respectfully, as though asking directly might cost her the relationship. She reassured herself that love required endurance. She told herself that commitment meant tolerance, and she must be tolerant. She convinced herself that wanting consistency might be unreasonable, or worse, being selfish. I remember in the last episode I told you something. It's not bad to be selfish. Each relationship ended with a variation of the same sentence. You deserve someone who can give you more. What unsettled Zainab was not the endings themselves. It's the repetition, the sense that although the men changed, the emotional scripts did not. She once said something that was very, very important. I keep falling in love with different men, but I'm always in the same relationship. So, I put it to you listening to me today. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever loved someone who felt emotionally unavailable, yet strangely magnetic? Have you ever mistaken emotional distance for depth? At what point did attraction quietly turn into emotional labor? Zainab did not choose unavailable partners consciously. Her body chose familiarity long before her mind gave her the chance to intervene. This is the love language. My name is Abdul Ghaffar Arikewuyo. Thank you for telling your friends about this. I'm very glad you are part of this with us. Let me tell you something very important. This is where we slow down and speak honestly. I tell you the truth, as bitter as it could be and as important as they are. We need to dismantle a popular myth. Attraction is not random. That's what a lot of people say. You may experience it as sudden, even mysterious, but your nervous system rarely treats it that way. Attraction often follows emotional pathways you learned before you had the language to describe them. Attachment theory helps us to make sense of this. Your earliest emotional environment teaches you what love feels like. If caregivers offered affection inconsistently, warm one day, distant the next day, your system learns to stay alert. If love came conditionally, given when you performed well, withheld when you disappointed, your system learns to earn connection. If emotions were met with restraint, stop crying, be strong, don't ask too much, your system learns to minimize your needs to stay close. That learning settles deep. So, when you become an adult, you do not simply seek love. You often seek what is recognizable. You gravitate towards partners who recreate the emotional rhythm you already know, not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar, and the body in it is quite confusing, often mistakes familiarity to safety. This is why emotionally unavailable people can feel exciting rather than alarming. They create uncertainty, and uncertainty activates vigilance. Vigilance produces intensity. Intensity creates uncertainty. Intensity then gets mislabeled as passion. You interpret the heightened state of proof that something meaningful is happening, when in fact your nervous system is responding to unpredictability. Ask yourself carefully, does calm feel boring to me in relationships? Do I feel most alive when I am trying to be chosen? Do I confuse the emotional chase to emotional depth? If the answer is yes, that does not make you defective. It points to an attachment imprint, a learned pattern, not a personal failure. Cultural narratives often deepen this confusion. Many societies romanticize suffering. They make suffering feel like it's normal. They teach that love should hurt, that endurance proves commitment, and that emotional restraint signals strength. Who said that? These stories quietly reward self-abandonment while calling it romance. They train people to tolerate deprivation as a sign of seriousness. But here is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot heal a wound by repeatedly reopening it in different bodies. Until you name the pattern, it reopens, it repeats. Until you understand it, it feels inevitable. Awareness will not immediately change who attracts you, but it gives you something powerful. So pause and pause. The choice is yours. This is Love Language. My name is Abdul Ghaffar. Today's question, let's talk about the hard questions and soft answers. Today's hard question is, if I'm aware, why do I still fall for the same kind of person? It's an honest question, I must say, and it often carries frustration beneath it. Many people assume that once they can name their patterns, those patterns should lose their power. But self-awareness on its own is not the same thing as healing. Insight lives in the mind. Patterns live in the body. You can understand your relational habits intellectually and still feel powerfully drawn towards the same emotional dynamic. You can explain your attachment style, recognize red flags early, and still feel your heart accelerate around the same kind of person. This is because attraction is not governed by logic alone. It is shaped by the nervous system. Healing does not occur because you know better. It occurs when your body learns slowly and repeatedly that consistency is safe, that stability does not equal boredom, and that love does not have to be earned through endurance. It's not all about endurance. You need to understand that fact. Breaking a pattern therefore requires grief. Not only grief for past partners, but grief for a deeper illusion. The hope that this time someone else will finally meet an unmet need you have cried for so long. The fantasy that another person will provide the validation, consistency, or emotional security that once felt absent. So ask yourself gently but honestly, what do I hope this person will finally give me? Is it validation that confirms your worth, consistency that settles your anxiety, emotional safety that feels long overdue? These needs are not wrong, they are human, but when they are outsourced entirely to another person, they keep you emotionally trapped, repeating the same story with different characters. The real question is not, how do I choose differently? The deeper question is, what must I let go of in order to choose differently? Sometimes healing does not feel empowering at first. Sometimes it feels like disappointment, and only later does it begin to feel like freedom. Let's close gently for the program today. This is Love Language. My name is Abdul Ghaffar. Wherever you're listening from, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath slowly with me. Hold it briefly. Now release it slowly and fully. Here is your affirmation. You are not broken for repeating patterns. You are human for seeking what feels familiar. Your nervous system learned these responses long before you had the chance to choose differently. Here is your reflection. Attraction is not instruction. What draws you in is not always what will sustain you. Familiarity is not destiny, even when it feels powerful and convincing. And here is your challenge for the week. Notice who attracts you and ask why before you ask what if. Slow yourself down when intensity appears. Resist the urge to interpret urgency as meaning. Practice tolerating consistency. Allow calm to exist without suspicion. Give yourself time to learn what steadiness feels like in your body. Because the most transformative relationships often feel unfamiliar at first, not because they lack depth, but because they do not repeat old wounds. And finally, remember this. Healing does not mean you stop feeling deeply. It means you stop confusing longing with love and intensity with intimacy. Until next time, my name is Abdul Ghaffar Arikioyo. I'd like to say thank you so much for listening to me, and feel free to send me an email. Until next time, be patient with your process and gentle with your heart. Thank you for listening to the Love Language Podcast with Abdul Ghaffar. For more inquiries, questions, or if you'd like to have a personal conversation, please send an email to coolgaffimedia@gmail.com. That's COOLGAFFI media@gmail.com. Love Language. Conversations about love that ask more of you.